Let's get settled in. My goodness, this chair is so comfortable. Ladies and gentlemen, we are playing out part 2 of NordStream Sabotage, Whodunit, and I want to point something out here. Something that I'm noticing with how the media is trying to spin this whole affair and how some of us dissidents formulate thoughts on how this all plays out. If you recall, when the debacle in Eastern Europe first broke out and people asked me my opinion on this, I said I don't know. This is far out of my intellectual pay grade. I have to go off and do some research. So I listened to all kinds of opinions from Professor Mearsheimer, George Kennan, Chris Hedges, Noam Chomsky, Henry Kissinger, for heaven's sake, Mulbach, all of these diverse group of characters, if that word isn't perverted now, across a vast range of political spectrums, and I thought, well, that's quite a curious thought. If you can get people as far out politically diverse as Marxists and monarchists to find common ground, especially with regards to foreign policy, you'd pause and ask some questions. If you did not jump into the lava with all the other horde of spastic lemmings and support the current thing, you were lambasted as a pro-Papa Putin stooge. How am I lumped in league with a so-called authoritarian, and if I don't agree with you, I'm somehow silenced for asking questions? You don't find that mildly ironic? No? Alright then. But that shtick is now being used for this as well. If you question the narrative around this, you'll be labeled as anti-American. I'm not pro-Putin or pro-Russia, I'm anti-bastard. And considering the factors at play here, many people deduce that currently the head honchos of bastard are the Americans. The more scoops of red pill variety you consume, the more you're likely to look back at the media and go, holy hell, this is some kind of crazy. At this point in time, especially with the contortioning around this, my word, there is a part of me that thinks the narrative weaving is just a testing procedure to see what level of stupid they can chuck into the vat of public opinion to see what takes hold. And that's it, no more, no less. Because the spin around the pipelines, my word, it is something else, I'm telling you. The whole reason for Nord Stream pipelines was to not have the gas traverse through other sovereign nation states. It's to get it directly to Germany without any third-party interference and to help fulfill its energy obligations to Germany. It's cheaper when there's less hands involved, getting it from point A to point B, basic market principles. So why on earth, then, would Russia blow up their own pipeline when they control the traffic of the gas from their end? They can just turn it off. So a Wall Street Journal article, NATO formally blames sabotage for Nord Stream pipeline damage. Military alliance says it would be prepared to defend its infrastructure from attacks in a significant ratcheting up of tensions between Russia and the West. Then I see this other article that said Spain blames Russia for this. Now, try and follow me on this here, folks. Apparently, Germany was warned several weeks prior by the CIA, of an attack on the pipeline. Hey, there's going to be an attack on the pipeline. Where? Round about here. How do you know this? Bye-bye. Now, to blame Russia for this, firstly, again, where is the incentive for any of this? At all. Secondly, we know US forces were in this region before. And can someone explain this to us? That the Russian forces, who are apparently too incompetent to finish off the Ukrainians, for some reason, though, have the sophistication to, under the nose of other military forces, plant bombs and evade detection while doing this. What, a couple of Spetsnaz turned pro divers, did they? And remember as well, there's an adjacent pipeline linked to Norway and Poland that opened the very same day as the Nord Stream pipeline is attacked, but that one remained unharmed. What the hell is the use of the CIA's intel when you claim you will defend it after the destruction of the pipeline? Why the hell didn't you do something before when you can make claims of an incoming attack? Hey, who the fuck is buying this? How does this not look like a deliberate attempt to ramp up escalations? And again, what is your problem with Russia? Let me follow the logic on this, right? The Americans, who clearly do not want Russia's influence in the region, why I don't know, again, defense versus energy, are going to blame Russia for sabotaging a piece of infrastructure that provides them with leverage in order for other Western powers to blame them and give them an excuse to engage in potential hostile military actions against Russia. Again, who the fuck is buying this? But here is something else I want to point out. Let's think about this logically. Nord Stream pipeline has been in operation since 2011, right? You don't build a second pipeline and spend billions in whatever currency to make a second pipeline if the relationship between Russia and Germany is not reciprocal and on good grounds, beneficial for both parties. That makes no sense. So why the hell then did the German Chancellor and his economic team refuse to certify the pipeline and pump the gas? Who or what is pulling his strings? Because sabotaging the relationship sure as hell doesn't make any sense for the German people, which will tell you it's frickin' Washington. I saw one comment that said, if Russia wanted to stop sending gas to Europe, it would just turn off the pipeline. If the US wanted Europe to not be dependent on Russia, it would blow up Russia's pipelines. If Europe wanted to not be dependent on Russia, it would have built better energy infrastructure decades ago. Perfect assessment, I can't find any faults. Now with that being said, obviously I blame the Americans for this because I can't finger any other suspects or motives for this, and all the arrows point towards giant flashing neon lights screaming, "The Yankees did it." But as V pointed out, in the wake of this, a whole load of country leaders will come out and point fingers and say whatever is in their strategic national interests, and you won't know who is the culprit. If it was America, they're not going to admit to it, and even if they did, nothing would happen to them. They would likely face no repercussions at all, and that's the problem. For once, I disagree with V, rarely. America being the world police is an absolute catastrophe, and many an American will agree with this because they do not think America's foreign policy is all that benevolent. Considering their history, that is a justifiable one, and you've had people such as former President Eisenhower warning of the military-industrial complex's growth in, I think, the 1960s. Given that we've seen top military brass openly defying President Trump and breaking protocol with regards to the chain of command, Eisenhower's warning seems to be rather warranted. I have no problem with the concept of a world referee, but that is not America's role in the world. They've become an unaccountable force of chaos that's plunged their own nation into a death spiral of unimaginable debt. Nor do I buy this idea that without American influence in the region, Europe would somehow find itself fighting yet another war. That part of Europe gets a bad rap, especially given the history around Prussia's military might and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, etc., etc. But let's not forget, the reason for the chaos of the last century, especially the former half, is because of American intervention and the catastrophic arrogance of that bastard Woodrow fucking Wilson. He was the one that got America involved in World War I after the American population was staunchly opposed to entering the war, even after he campaigned on being non-interventionist, and he trampled all over freedom of expression against anyone who spoke out against the war. The result was a bloody mess and needless casualties for no reason. America was under no threat from any European affairs. He was the one who bribed the provincial government of Russia to keep fighting in the war and allowed for the overthrow of the Tsar and the communists to take power that would result in the creation of the Soviet Union and the Cold War. He was the one who allowed Britain and France to push the indignity of the Treaty of Versailles, the punishing war guilt clause, and the merciless reparations on Germany. He was the one who pushed for the abdication of the Kaiser and the dissolution of the European monarchies, and after the miserable failure of the Weimar Republic and the stock market crash in America, paved the way for the rise of Adolf Hitler. It was his stupid concoction of the League of Nations that formed the backbone of what would become the United Nations today. There is no one person that has shaped the disastrous events of the last century for humanity more than Woodrow fucking Wilson. That's the shit you get if you allow the bloody Yanks to get involved in affairs that don't concern them. And now they can seemingly openly destroy another country's infrastructure, and their media will actively push to use it as justification to escalate military tensions when the world is already in a state of economic turmoil and iffy energy security. Oh, but thank God for America. Uncle Sam can fuck off.